Beauty has always demanded sacrifice, from blackened teeth to bone-crushing foot binding. History's beauty trends were extreme, bizarre, and often dangerous. Why did people endure such pain for fashion? And are today's trends any less extreme? Let's dive into the shocking world of beauty through the ages. Blackened teeth. There was a time when a radiant white smile wasn't the ideal instead. Jet black seen as beautiful and dignified. Across places like Japan, Vietnam, and parts of Southeast Asia, darkened teeth were symbols of wisdom, status, and even spiritual protection. In Vietnam, people believed blackening teeth could repel evil spirits, while in Japan, ohaguro was a respected tradition. The dyeing process, though painful and labor-intensive, was seen as a necessary step toward elegance. As Western beauty ideals spread, the practice slowly disappeared. But for many, blackened teeth weren't just fashion, they were a meaningful part of cultural identity. Their 1989 single Room to Move gained some airplay but wasn't enough to sustain them. After disbanding, Animotion reunited in 2001 for a popular Portland show and continued performing intermittently, releasing the album Raise in 2016, showing their enduring appeal. 20 Flight Rockers. In the mid-1980s, 20 Flight Rockers, a London band named after Eddie Cochran's 20 Flight Rock, aimed to revive 50s rock with a punk edge. Formed in 1985 and led by Gary Twin, they blended rockabilly riffs with punk energy, creating a fresh yet nostalgic sound. Known for their slick rocker style and high-energy live shows, they gained a loyal underground following. Despite this, mainstream success eluded them. Their self-produced album Ride was set for release in 1988 but was shelved due to label problems, halting their momentum without a breakthrough. 20 Flight Rockers disbanded, remaining a lost gem of 80s rock. Club Nuvo, one of the biggest R&B crossover acts of the 1980s, was born from the breakup of the Timex Social Club. In 1986, producer Jay King formed the group in Sacramento, naming it New Club in French to symbolize a fresh start. Their debut album, Life, Love and Pain, was an instant hit, especially their energetic go-go cover of Bill Withers' Lean on Me, which topped the Billboard Hot 100 in 1987. Other singles like Jealousy and Why You Treat Me So Bad also gained popularity, with the latter becoming a heavily sampled track in hip-hop, notably in Lunice's I Got 5 on It. Despite lineup changes and less successful later albums, Club Nouveau's influence lives on, especially through hip-hop sampling. The Outfield. The Outfield story is a fascinating example of transatlantic success. Formed in London in 1984, the trio vocalist and bassist Tony Lewis, guitarist John Spinks, and drummer Alan Jackman blended the power of arena rock with catchy pop hooks. Their debut album Play Deep 1985 featured the smash hit Your Love, which climbed to number 6 on the US Billboard Hot 100 and became a defining anthem of 80s American rock radio. The track's memorable riff and sing-along chorus secured The Outfield a place in the soundtrack of the decade, especially in the US, where the album went triple platinum. However, despite their American success, the band never achieved the same recognition in their native UK. Their follow-up album, Bangin' 1987, offered a modest hit with Since You've Been Gone, but it was never able to match the impact of Play Deep. The band continued producing music through the 90s, but their popularity waned. Tragedy struck in 2014 when John Spinks died from liver cancer, marking the end of The Outfield. Tony Lewis pursued a solo career, Releasing an album in 2018 before his passing in 2020 closed the chapter on this uniquely transatlantic band. Kajagoogoo's rise was as quirky as their name, which originated from Baby Talk. Initially formed as Art Nuvo in 1978 in Leighton Buzzard, England, the band's blend of new wave and synth-pop failed to make waves until they rebranded as Kajagoogoo in the early 80s. The addition of flamboyant frontman Lee Mal gave the band the spark they needed. Their debut single, Too Shy, co-produced by Duran Duran's Nick Rhodes, soared to #1 on the UK singles chart in 1983 and reached the top 5 on the US Billboard Hot 100. Suddenly, Kajagoogoo were pop darlings with a fresh, synth-driven sound and memorable visuals. However, internal tensions led to Limal's departure that same year. Though the remaining members released singles like Big Apple and The Lion's Mouth, they never regained their initial success. The band disbanded by 1985, only briefly reuniting in the 2000s without recapturing their early magic. Sigue Sputnik. With a vision that went beyond music, Sigue Sputnik formed in 1982, led by former Generation X bassist Tony James. The band was a spectacle, dressed in neon metallic costumes with outrageous hairstyles. They embodied a futuristic cyberpunk aesthetic that was both provocative and theatrical. Their music fused glam rock, punk, and electronic dance, embodying a dystopian, rebellious spirit. Their debut single, Love Missile F-111, produced by Giorgio Moroder in 1986, became a UK top 3 hit and gained international exposure by featuring in the film Ferris Bueller's Day Off. However, their heavily marketed image, including selling ad space on album covers, led some critics to question whether the band was more about style than substance. Though their chart presence faded by the late 80s, Sigue Sputnik maintained a cult following and influenced later electronic and industrial rock artists, leaving a unique imprint on music history. Frankie Goes to Hollywood. Frankie Goes to Hollywood's legacy is intertwined with controversy and boldness. Formed in Liverpool in 1980, the band featured vocalist Holly Johnson and quickly gained notoriety for their provocative style and politically charged music. Their debut single, Relax 1983, was banned by the BBC due to its sexually suggestive lyrics and racy promotional material. But the ban only fueled public curiosity. The single skyrocketed to #1 on the UK charts, holding the top spot for 5 weeks and selling over 2 million copies. The band followed this success with 2 more UK #1s, the anti-war anthem, 2 Tribes, and the heartfelt ballad, The Power of Love. Their debut album, Welcome to the Pleasure Dome, blended new wave, synth-pop, and politically charged themes, solidifying their place in 1980s pop culture. Internal conflicts and legal issues fractured the band, and by 1987, Holly Johnson had left for a solo career, ending the band's brief but impactful run. Their music and attitude continue to influence artists and fans alike. Aha. Few bands benefited as much from the power of music videos as Aha, formed in Oslo, Norway. In 1982, Aha consisted of lead vocalist Morten Harket, keyboardist Magni Furuholmen, and guitarist Paul Wakhtar Savoy. Their breakthrough hit Take On Me, 1985, was propelled by a groundbreaking video that combined live action footage with innovative pencil sketch rotoscoping animation. The video's imaginative storytelling captivated global audiences and helped push the song to #1 on the US Billboard Hot 100. Their debut album, Hunting High and Low, featured other hits like The Sun Always Shines on TV and Train of Thought. solidifying their synth-pop credentials. While they struggled to maintain strong chart presence in the US, afterward, Aha enjoyed sustained success in Europe, continuously releasing music through the 90s and 2000s. After a hiatus in 2010, the band reunited in 2015, reaffirming their lasting appeal and connection with fans worldwide. The Replacements, hailing from Minneapolis. The Replacements began as a punk band in 1979 and evolved into a genre-defying act. Their 1984 album, Let It Be, was critically acclaimed, showcasing Paul Westerberg's songwriting. Albums like Tim and Pleased to Meet Me followed, but inner turmoil and inconsistency kept them from mainstream success. Disbanding in 1991, they remain one of alternative rock's most influential bands. The Men They Couldn't Hang. Blending folk storytelling with punk intensity, this London band formed in 1984 and broke through with the Green Fields of France. Their 1985 debut, Night of a Thousand Candles, became a cornerstone of folk punk. Though they never achieved massive fame, their politically charged lyrics and passionate performances won them a devoted fan base. They disbanded in 1991, but reunited in 1996. Rip Rig Plus Panic formed in 1980 in Bristol. Rip Rig Plus Panic featured genre-defying musicians, including Nena Cherry. Their music blended post-punk, funk, and free jazz, debuting with 1981's God. A performance on The Young Ones brought them wider attention, but their avant-garde style limited commercial appeal. Disbanded by 1983, their members remained active in music, with Cherry finding solo success later. The Sound, led by Adrian Borland. The Sound formed in South London in 1979 and created emotionally intense post-punk music. Their 1980 debut, Jeopardy, and 1981's From the Lion's Mouth earned critical praise but not commercial success. Overshadowed by peers like Echo and the Bunnymen, the band remained cult favorites. Borland's mental health struggles ended tragically with his 1999 death, but the band's legacy remains hauntingly powerful. Vixen, one of the few all-female glam metal bands to break through. Vixen was formed in 1980 by guitarist Jan Kennemund. Their 1988 debut delivered hits like Edge of a Broken Heart and Cryin', bolstered by heavy MTV play. With Janet Gardner on vocals, they toured with legends like Kiss and Scorpions. Their 1990 follow-up Rev It Up continued their success, but the grunge wave led to their 1992 breakup. They later reunited, proving their lasting influence in rock. Lip Sync became a global sensation in 1980 with Funky Town, a disco anthem defined by its funky grooves and futuristic synths. Formed in Minneapolis in 1979 by producer Steven Greenberg, the studio project featured rotating musicians, with Cynthia Johnson providing the iconic vocals, a former Miss Black Minnesota. Johnson's charisma and voice helped launch the band's debut album, Mouth to Mouth, into the spotlight. Funky Town topped charts in 28 countries, including 4 weeks at #1 on the US Billboard Hot 100. Despite its massive success, the band couldn't replicate the hit's impact, and as disco declined, Lip Sync faded from the charts. They disbanded in 1985, but Funky Town remains a dance floor staple and a defining relic of the disco era. The Waitresses, blending sharp wit with a feminist edge. The Waitresses stood out in the early 80s new wave scene, originating in Akron, Ohio, and led by guitarist Chris Butler. Their breakthrough song, I Know What Boys Like, offered a satirical take on gender roles and hit the Billboard Hot 100 in 1982. Their debut album, Wasn't Tomorrow Wonderful, mixed punk, jazz, and pop in quirky, memorable fashion. Another hit, Christmas Wrapping, became a perennial holiday favorite. Despite promise, their 1983 follow-up Bruiseology failed to chart significantly, and internal strife led to their 1984 breakup. Til Tuesday formed in Boston in 1982. Til Tuesday soared into the spotlight with Voices Carry, a synth-pop hit known for its emotionally charged video and Amy Mann's haunting vocals. The 1985 single reached number 8 on the Billboard Hot 100 and established the band's melancholic, atmospheric style. Follow-up albums Welcome Home, 1986, and Everything's Different. Now 1988 showcased Mann's evolving, introspective songwriting but didn't match the success of their debut. Creative differences and internal tension led to the band's end in 1989. Amy Mann would go on to a celebrated solo career. Johnny Hates Jazz. Johnny Hates Jazz delivered sleek, emotionally driven pop in the late 80s. Formed in London in 1985 by Clark Datchler and Mike Nocito, their polished style and catchy songwriting stood out. Their breakout hit Shattered Dreams 1987 charted globally, including Known 5 in both the US and UK. Their debut album, Turn Back the Clock, 1988, featured more hits like I Don't Want to Be a Hero. However, Datchler left the band shortly after, and their 1991 follow-up Tall Stories failed to capture the same success. Despite a brief peak, their radio-friendly sound left a lasting impression. Visage, pioneers of the new romantic movement. Visage formed in London in 1978 with Steve Strange at the helm, joined by Midge Ure, Rusty Egan, and others from Ultravox and Magazine. Their 1980 debut featured the iconic track Fade to Grey, a synth-heavy hit that became a European classic and reached number 8 in the UK. Their visual flair and fashion-forward image matched their icy electronic sound, defining an era. Later albums like The Anvil 1982 and Beat Boy 1984 couldn't replicate the impact of their debut. The band dissolved in 1985, though Strange attempted revivals before his death in 2015. Band of Susans. Band of Susans made waves in the experimental rock scene with their dense, guitar-driven soundscapes. Formed in New York in 1986 by Robert Poss and Susan Stenger. The band featured multiple members named Susan in its original lineup. Their debut EP, Blessing and Curse, 1987, and first album, Hope Against Hope, 1988, introduced their hypnotic, feedback-heavy style. Albums like Love Agenda 1989 and The Word and the Flesh 1991 received critical acclaim, cementing their cult status despite limited commercial reach. Future Helmet frontman Page Hamilton was briefly a member. The band disbanded in 1996, but their influence on noise rock and avant-garde guitar music remains notable. We hope you enjoyed this journey back to the 80s, uncovering some of the incredible bands that, despite their talent, might not have stayed in the mainstream spotlight. It's always fascinating to see how much great music can be found just beyond the biggest hits. Were there any of these forgotten 80s bands that you remember from back in the day? We'd love to hear your memories and thoughts.